What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to episode 128 of the Spun Today Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. This is a free writing session episode. In this episode, I share my March, April, and May 2019 writing stats, a couple of free writing tips that I picked up along the way. Actually, they're just writing tips, not free writing tips. I tell you about what I've been reading. I share my results of my first round of ad marketing for my debut novel, FRACTAL, which you can pick up now. Links are in the episode notes. And finally, I read and reflect on some of my free writing, which is located at spuntoday.com/free writing. Are you interested in any of that stuff? Good. So am I. Stick around. If you're new to the podcast and would like to help support, and also happen to be a creative yourself, check out my questionnaire for creatives at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. It consists of 5 open-ended questions aimed at giving you the opportunity to share insights from your craft with us. Imbue us with tips and tricks of your trade. Again, you can find those 5 questions at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. Another cool way to help support is by following me on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Spun Today. And check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/Spun Today. All right, so how have I been doing with writing? For those of you that are new to the free writing session episodes of this podcast, what I do is, in terms of my writing stats, is I always jot down on a desk calendar with an X or check mark on the given day if I've written or if I have not written for that given day. And I tally it up at the end of each month. And I have found that, at least for me, it helps keep me honest. It helps me actually quantify my progress with writing and lets me look back and see how much time I'm actually dedicating to it versus how much time I think I'm actually dedicating to it. It also serves as motivation, or can serve as motivation, when you see a month that is one where you've been slacking and not writing as much. You can try to turn it around for the following month. And it's been pretty helpful for me as a writing tool. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. Each free writing session episode, I share any that I have not shared since the last free writing session episode. And it's been 3 months. So I have March, April, and May writing stats for you. For March 2019, it was a good writing month. I wrote 21 days out of the 31 days of the month. That's a percentage of 67.7%. For April 2019, it was a subpar month. I wrote 13 out of the 30 days in April. And that is a percentage of 43.3% of the days of April. And for May 2019, I had an atrocious writing month. I only wrote 5 out of the 31 days in May. That's horrible. That's the lowest since I've started keeping track of my writing for the past, I want to say like 2, maybe even 3 years. And that is a percentage of only 16.1%. Now, looking at this objectively, why was my writing count so shitty and declining from March, April to May? I can attribute it to a couple different things. First off is my debut novel, FRACTAL, which you can pick up now on Amazon in digital or paperback format. And if you join my email list, I might even send you a free digital copy. Just hit me up and let me know if you're interested. But my debut novel was published on March 28th, 2019. And for those of you that know this already, I apologize. But for anybody else that doesn't, that was about a 3-year work in progress. So it was a big goal that I finally met. And I have to admit that I kind of, quote, rested on my laurels, or kind of took like a breather, like a sigh of relief, like a load off my shoulders type of thing after it was published in terms of writing. So I kind of slacked off, for lack of a better word. Or actually, that's the perfect word, because there's been many a day that I could have written and I didn't. For a couple weeks after the debuting of the novel, I've been focusing on my energies on the marketing of it, the promoting of the book, some of which I'm going to get into the results of later on in the episode. But I recorded actually an episode entitled FRACTAL for the release of the book, where I detailed to you guys like the entire journey and process and what I was planning to do in terms of marketing. This episode, I'm going to share with you some of the results of that marketing. But yeah, those are my writing stats for March, April, and May 2019. March was good, April was subpar, and May was absolutely atrocious. And seeing that number so low kind of slapped me in the face and got me in gear to start writing the continuation, the second book in the 3-book series to follow FRACTAL, which I have since begun preliminary work on. And my goal this time around is not to spend 3 years writing it, so that you fine folks aren't left hanging for such a long time. Alrighty, writing tips. Today I'm going to share with you guys 2 tips, 2 kind of like motivations, if you will, that I picked up along the way, and they are related to writing. Obviously, they're writing tips, and they are actually quotes about writing from successful writers. The name of the actual article is 20 of the most instructive quotes about writing, and it's from the Helping Writers Become Authors website. Quote number 1, which is actually number 10 on the list of 20, but number 1 of the 2 that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Balancing humility and confidence. Writers have to simultaneously believe the following 2 things. The story I am now working on is the greatest work of genius ever written in English. And the story I am now working on is worthless drivel. Orson Scott Card. That quote kind of stood out to me in that, or spoke to me in that, I agree and think that on one hand, and it's kind of like a balancing thing that you have to do constantly while you're working on, for me, writing, but for anybody listening, whether it's writing or any creative outlet that you have, is having the confidence to actually do it and think that it might be worth something to someone someday, while at the same time not take yourself too seriously and think that anybody's actually going to want to read your shit. And if you create on the tightrope of those 2 ideals, I think you'll be better off for it. Quote number 2 that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, it's titled Foreshadowing. And it says, when you insert a hint of what's to come, look at it critically and decide whether it's something the reader will glide right by, but remember later with an aha. That's foreshadowing. If instead the reader groans and guesses what's coming, you've telegraphed. And that's by Hallie Efron. And I think that's a good little tactical lens to wear while you're reviewing your own creative writing. I know for me, with the ending of my book FRACTAL, I didn't see it coming. And I've read, I don't know if it was in Stephen King's On Writing or in one of Stephen Pressfield's works, or maybe Bird by Bird, I'm not sure, by Anne Lamott. But I read somewhere, or maybe on all these like writing blogs and stuff that I read, that when you're writing, if it's a surprise to you, the writer, it's probably going to be a surprise to the reader as well. And that's not to say that a skilled writer can't like know what the ending is beforehand. You know, a lot of writers actually start that way. They start with the ending. I know a lot of my short stories, which I've written, I've started out that way with knowing the ending, and then I just like wrote to that point. But with this story, with this novel, it wasn't like that. I had like the kernel or the seed of the beginning of a story and kind of like an idea of a theme, and I let the characters work everything out. So for a long time while writing the story, I didn't have an ending until I would say the third act, somewhere in the like deep middle of the third act. I didn't have like an actual ending, and then it hit me, and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah!" And I always wondered if it's something that I telegraphed like throughout the writing. I didn't think I did, but you never know. And it's not to say that nobody's going to see the ending coming. I'm sure some people would be able to, but the people that I've asked, and I have asked a couple, told me that they did not see the ending coming, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. So yeah, this tip stood out to me, and it's again a good trick, a good tool to use. I could kind of like hat to wear while you're reviewing your own writing. If you're interested in reading those tips and the other 18, the title of the article is 20 of the most instructive quotes about writing, and I will link to it in the episode notes. And it's from the helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com website. Alrighty, what I've been reading. I have 2 books for you, actually. One of which I completed, and the other one which I'm about a quarter of the way through, that I recently started. But the first one is one that I heard recommended by Tim Ferriss of the Tim Ferriss Show, and it's The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it wasn't recommended not only by him, but several of his guests. Like I've heard it come up in the podcast enough times to take notice, and decided to give it a whirl, and I enjoyed it. I liked it. It's the type of book that I can see myself revisiting and getting something different from in the future, or just like reinforcing what I got from it the first time around. It's also one of the books that I believe Tim Ferriss said that he reads like once a year or once a quarter. I forget like how often, but he reads it frequently. And although I would definitely revisit it and plan to sometime in the future, I don't think it's that type of book for me, personally. But just to give you an idea of what it's about and what I got from it, I'm going to first read you what the 4 agreements are, and then I'm going to play for you a little clip that resonated with me. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Agreement number 1 is be impeccable with your word. And to me, that agreement is pretty much like a mean what you say and say what you mean type of approach. And obviously in the book, he fleshes them out, each of the agreements out, in several different ways with different metaphors and examples. Agreement number 2 is don't take things personally. I think that's self-explanatory. Agreement number 3 is don't make assumptions. That one's also pretty self-explanatory. And the 4th agreement is always do your best. Now, these seem like very bedrock, foundational, like no shit Sherlock type of statements. But in the book, he helps you realize how often we like take these things for granted and don't live by these 4 agreements, but should be living by the 4 agreements, should be practicing them. All right, now here's the clip that I want to play for you guys that I'm going to attempt to play from my phone. So from my phone into the microphone that I'm recording this podcast on. Let's see how that works out.
The freedom we're looking for is the freedom to be ourselves, to express ourselves. But if we look at our lives, we'll see that most of the time we do things just to please others, just to be accepted by others, rather than living our lives to please ourselves. That is what's happened to our freedom. And we see in our society and all the societies around the world that for every 1,000 people, 999 are completely domesticated. The worst part is that most of us are not even aware that we are not free. There's something inside us that whispers to us that we're not free, but we do not understand what it is and why we are not free. The problem with most people is that they live their lives and never discover that the judge and the victim rule their mind, and therefore they don't have a chance to be free. The first step toward personal freedom is awareness.
And then it goes on from there to flesh out why awareness is the first step, and et cetera, et cetera. And it gives other steps and reasonings behind it. And I think it's a dope read. I definitely recommend it. You guys should check it out. I will link to it in the episode notes to make it easier for you. And again, it's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I'm fucking Hispanic, god damn it. Let me say that again. Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, the other book that I'm currently reading, that I'm currently listening to, the audiobook, is a book that was recommended by Nipsey Hussle on several, at least 3 different interviews that I heard him on. I think 2 that I heard him on. And then I want to say maybe The Breakfast Club and maybe Rap Radar. Maybe some other like obscure like podcast that I heard him on. And then more recently YG, after Nipsey's death, mentioned the same book that Nipsey put him on. And the topic seemed like something interesting and practical that maybe I could apply to writing and podcasting. And the way they spoke of it, Nipsey specifically, is that it's a book that helped him in terms of brand and marketing for the Marathon brand and for his like genius idea of selling his album for at a $100 price point when everybody was like giving the albums away for free and for like streams. That like marketing tactic got him like a lot of recognition and written about in magazines, kind of in like positive and negative ways. Like, who the hell is this guy thinking he could sell a CD for $100? And he got the nod from people like Jay-Z, who bought like 1,000 copies. I'm sorry, 100 copies. It was like $10,000 right? $100, 100 copies, 10,000. Yeah, so it was like 100 copies, and somebody else bought 100 copies, and a bunch of people like bought into it to support. But anyway, that's where this book was recommended to me. Not personally, obviously, but where I picked it up from. And then, I looked it up on Amazon, read a couple of the reviews. It has great reviews. I think it's like 4.5 to 5 stars. And it's The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Ries and Jack Trout. And like I said, that I'm only a quarter of the way through it, so I don't have much more than that to add at this time. Just want to give you guys a heads up that I am reading it. And once I finish it, I'll definitely share some gems with you guys. Right now, it's in the phase of like breaking down general marketing ideas behind different companies, different sectors. For example, like in soft drinks, it's Coca-Cola is number 1, Pepsi's a distant number 2, and number 3 is even a more distant RC Cola. It speaks about the importance of getting to market first, and if you're not first to market, finding some sort of niche within that market that you can say that you're first at. Like, for example, Hertz is first in car rental companies, but Alamo can say that they're the most comfortable in car rental companies. That's just an example off the top of my head. That's not exactly like that in the book, but just to give you an idea of the type of direction that the book takes. Like I said, I'll give you all some more feedback on that once I finish. Again, the name of the book is The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Ries and Jack Trout. I will link to it in the episode notes as well. Alrighty, next up are the results of my little marketing campaign that I did for my debut novel, FRACTAL. which again is available on Amazon and is linked to in the episode notes. Now, if you want additional details of what exactly I planned to do beforehand, check out the Spun Today Podcast episode titled, which is episode 123, is how I published my novel, and then in parentheses, FRACTAL. So check that episode out if you want like the origin story of where the story came from, the nuts and bolts of what program I used to write everything out, how I found time to write, where I published through, where I self-published through, and what my marketing plan was in terms of rolling out the book. This here in this episode is going to be the results of that rollout that I mentioned in that episode 123. All right, so when I rolled out the book initially, which is called a soft launch, I put the digital copy out for a discounted price. It was a price of 99 cents. And that was on March 28th, 2019. At that time, it's also available via KDP Select, which kind of like a Netflix service for reading called Kindle Unlimited. And it also makes that option also makes the book available to a Kindle owner's lending library where people can borrow the book for a certain period of time. And during that time, within the first few days, I got a handful of orders, some paid, some free, and it's free through the lending library and also the Kindle Unlimited service. And I'll tell you guys how you actually wind up getting paid from those like free copies, but not exactly the same way it works with the actual paid copies, with the like a flat royalty. So I would get like 4 downloads one day, 1 download another, 12 another, and that's pretty consistent. 0 another, 9 another, up until the date that I was going to do the first of my 2 marketing campaigns, because that's what I did. I did 2 paid advertisements, one of them through FreeBooksy, which I will also link to in the episode notes if you're interested, freebooksy.com. And the second one was through jamesmayfield.com. Now, the way it works is that I set the book to free during the same time that this first campaign was going on. Now, the campaign is a 1-day campaign. It's a direct email marketing campaign through FreeBooksy, which has a deep email list, broken down by subscribers, and they direct mail their folks and saying, hey, this book FRACTAL is free today only on Kindle Unlimited, so pick it up, check it out, download it if you're interested. And the cost of this 1-day email campaign was $70. I was weary at first because it's $70, but I also know that if I'm gonna take this seriously, I need to start like getting into the game of this self-publishing thing and not just stick through the inexperience that was the first book that I put out, self-published book, which is a nonfiction titled Make Way for You, which has to date sold 6 copies. So you have to do things like professional book cover design, which I did on this book, advertising, which I've done a little bit of, that I'm sharing with you guys now. I should be doing professional editing, which I did not do, but I spoke about that during the episode 123 of the podcast, which I mentioned earlier, and my reasonings for not going with professional editing this time around, so on and so forth. So I went with it, and the way it works is that they blast their list the day that you set it for free, which, you plan out in advance. You tell them what day you want the emails to go out. You set up your KDP promotion to make the book free on said date, and the day after is recommended as well, because, some people get the email but they don't read it for a day or two later. And the day of the campaign, I got 2,030 downloads of my novel, FRACTAL. Mind you, these are all free units, so it's not like I'm making buku dollars. But the idea behind this, folks, by the way, which I mentioned in that episode 123, but I'll mention here again, is that you want to get as many reviews as possible, as many reviews as you can, especially when you're an author that's starting out, you don't have any name recognition within this field. You want to get your work out there to people. One, because, I mean, you create something, you want people to take it in, right? You want people to read it and get some constructive feedback from them, obviously, and get better at your craft. But also from a marketing and business perspective, it's smart to put the book out for free, get a bunch of downloads, because at the end of this little marketing campaign, you're going to set your price to the price that you're going to be selling the book at in perpetuity, and you want to have some reviews backing your book. You don't want it to just be like a book that's up there and has no reviews. Because from the consumer perspective, if you see something like that, you kind of sort of don't trust it and shy away from it and just go to the next thing that's similar. So anyway, I got 2,030 reviews. 2,030 downloads of the book during that first campaign. The next day I got 406 more. So that $70 got me a total of 2,436 downloads of my book, FRACTAL, which was, to me, like, great to see. I didn't see numbers anywhere near that with my previous book. So to me, that ad campaign obviously worked, and it's something that I'm definitely planning to do again next month in a similar fashion, just to keep the book fresh, continue getting downloads, have more folks read it, and hopefully review it. Now, if you do the math on, actually, before I break that down, let me tell you guys the second ad campaign that I did, which was a week later. So I did that first free weekend campaign. Then the book goes back to the soft launch price of 99 cents. Then there's another couple days where the book is free. And I paid $13, for an ad through James Mayfield. That was also highly recommended on, different writing blogs and successful writers that I follow. And what he does is kind of like a blast of Facebook posts, Instagram, direct email, Reddit posts, etc. And then he sends you afterwards like a little montage of all the posts and ads that he did. And it's only $13. I was like, fuck it. If it works, amazing. If it doesn't, then whatever. It's only $13. I just spent $70 a week before on the other ad, which did really well. So, fuck it. And much to my surprise, on that first day, that the $13 ad got 196 downloads. Then the next day, got another 122 downloads. I would say the day after that, I got 37 downloads. The day after that, I got 47 downloads. The day after that, I got 46. Now, I attribute all those dates to, obviously, there's going to be some variance there, right? They're not all just a product of this specific ad. Some of them could have been lingering from the previous ads. Some of them just could be randoms. But I attribute all of these to this specific ad just because from there on out, and just like in between both ads and before all ads, then the downloads kind of normalized to the usual, 5 a day to 3 a day to 1 a day to 0 a day for, a bunch of days in a row. Then you get one random one. Then you get a little spike. You get like 2 or 3 on a given day, etc., etc. And what I was going to say before, in terms of if you break it down and do the math, I got from the first ad 2,436 downloads for $70. And that's about 0.28 cents per download, which if you round up is 3 cents per download. And then through the second paid advertisement that I did through James Mayfield, I got a total of 448 downloads for $13. And that works out to a total of 0.29 cents, which again, if you round up, is 3 cents per download. Actually, 0.03 cents. No, wait. Yeah, 3 cents per download. So they're very similar, 0.028 and 0.029. But in terms of volume, the free Booksy, which is the more expensive one for $70, yielded 2,436. And they're both equally as effective financially and monetarily, but you want volume. Because you want in theory, the more people download it, the more people read it, and then the more people review it. And in terms of actual reviews, I've had a handful, literally about, my last check, 6, 7, 8, possibly 8. I think it's more like 6 or 7 total reviews between like Goodreads and Amazon, which I definitely need and want to step up. So if you're listening, folks, and you haven't rated the book yet, and you've downloaded the book and you've read the book, please rate and review it either on Goodreads or on Amazon. And if you want a free copy of the book, hit me up and I'll get one over to you. But don't forget to hook me up with a review. Right now, circling back to something that I mentioned before, the Kindle Owners Lending Library and the Kindle Unlimited service, which are services where people get to read your book for free as long as you opt in to the KDP Select option through Amazon, which I did. Just because it gives your book that much more exposure, and I have no delusions of grandeur of becoming a dozen heir from all the dough that I'm making from my writing right now. So exposure is key, right? What's really cool is that you can see a breakdown of how many pages of your book people read a day. And it's the people that have downloaded your book via these respective means, whether through the lending library or just straight through Kindle Unlimited. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting to see, because some days there's 818 pages read of my book. My book is only it's a total of 325 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Well, the paperback copy is. And you have 90 something pages one day, 549 pages another day, and it's a crazy chart. It shows you day by day by day, and you get to see the traffic your book is getting in. It's for me as a writer, it's exciting to see oh shit, somebody out there is fucking reading my book. People are liking it or just getting through it or whatever, but it's still getting traction. People are reading the words that I wrote, and I'm curious as to what they're thinking about it, which is why you guys should review it. No, but it's really cool though. It's both humbling and inspiring at the same time, because now I want to write and create more and put more content out there, and I want to get better at it to deliver quality product. Now, in terms of what I mentioned of getting paid from these free downloads, the way it works, sorry folks, my throat is all fucked up. I've had this dry cough for 4 weeks. The doctor gave me some pills to take for the cough 3 times a day for a month, and that helped a little bit. But now he switched me to the liquid fucking promethazine, which I think is the shit that's in lean. About to get some Sprite and make some scissor or some shit. But I hate those drowsy causing medicines, because I feel it for lingering for 2 or 3 days after the fact. But it has definitely helped with the cough. It's just my voice is still hoarse. Anyway, every month Amazon awards the top 100 writers, I think it is. And by top 100, it's the top 100 most read writers through these methods that I just described of page counting and stuff like that. percentage from a pie of, usually it's around like the 20 to 25 million dollar mark. And that translates to, obviously, super popular writers make mad dough from it. And, writers like myself that are just having like, a few dozen to a couple hundred pages read a day, it can translate to like 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, which is definitely not nothing. You reinvest that right back in to a couple more ads and you let it snowball. And that's what I intend to do while I continue to work on additional content. And yeah, that's my breakdown of how it went with the marketing. My first time attempting to market and pay for ads for a book of mine. And it was, by all accounts, don't have much to compare it to, but by all accounts, a success. I do have actually to compare it to the number breakdown that a writer that shared their marketing rollout plan that I borrowed some ideas from, in terms of like starting the soft launch at 99 cents, spacing it out between 1 week to another week for the 2 different ads, etc. And I got slightly more downloads than he did for my first round of ads for that first week. I'm not sure about the second though. And he also did, I think, a third, if I'm not mistaken, but I only did 2. So yeah, successful. Or rather, successful enough to invest again in another round. But anyway, my debut novel, FRACTAL, a time travel tale, is available now on Amazon, and I will link to it in the episode notes for you folks to pick it up, read it, like it, share it, rate it, and review it. Now, finally, I'm going to share some of my free writing. I'm actually just going to share one piece with you guys today, and it can be found on my website, along with all the rest of my free writing, which is located at spuntoday.com/free writing. This piece was posted on June 9th, 2019. And it's one of the free writing pieces where I take a quote from somewhere that resonated with me. In this case, it was from the movie Creed 2. And I just free write based off of that quote. And there was a scene where Rocky Balboa says, quote, "A chunk of yesterday trying to be today," end quote. And here's what I wrote. Sylvester Stallone says this line during the movie while playing Rocky and in reference to himself. It was one of those cinema moments that just jumps out of the screen and into your soul, your psyche. It made me contemplate and think about where he had to be emotionally to feel as if his present and future weren't measuring up in some way to his past. It made me contemplate how many times my present and imminent future hadn't stacked up to the goals I had for myself in the past. Instead of wallowing in it, though, and contemplating the lapsed time and lost opportunities, pull that past energy into the present and make up for lost time now. Why not, right? That's how you can cross-pollinate desires, time, and opportunity. And I wrote that on Thursday, June 6th, 2019 at 4:34 p.m. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen Creed 2. Months. But what I do when I watch movies or listen to music or watching a TV show or anything, anytime I hear something that resonates with me, like that line in that scene of the movie just like stood out to me instantly. And what I do is pull up my phone, pull up my notepad, and jot it down to one day circle back to it, or just to read it again in the future and remind myself of the scene, but usually for the purposes of free writing in this format of using the quote to inspire me to free write in a specific direction. And this is actually fitting to the conversation, or I guess it's not really a conversation, right? It's just like a one-sided me speaking type of thing. But something that I mentioned earlier in terms of like slacking on my writing during the month of May. This is like a testament to that, because like this quote I've had written down to like come back to and free write to, like since I saw this movie again months ago, and I hadn't free written to it until June 6th, 2019 at 4:34 p.m. But it's like, why not? You know, I could have written to this throughout all of May, throughout all of April, probably all of March, or at least part of March, if that's like when I saw the movie. But you know what I mean? And that's kind of like a testament to that line where I say that it made me contemplate how many times my present and my imminent future hasn't stacked up to the goals I had for myself in the past. Like in the past, I had the goals of, you know, writing every single day, or, you know, writing at least 90% of the days or 80% of the days would be great. And being this prolific writer that puts out a ton of material, but that's quality material, and being able to like look back on a body of work and be proud of it one day. Like I have those goals, but I'm clearly not stacking up to them right now. So it's like I felt them, like when I felt that sentiment when he mentioned it in the movie in reference to himself and his evolution as a person and his boxing career, etc. But like I say in that line at the end, instead of like wallowing in it and just contemplating about the lost opportunities and times that you've fucked up, you know, use that same energy to pull those like goals from the past into the present and do them now. Do them on June 6, 2019 at 4:34 p.m. Instead of saying, damn, I should have written that a long time ago. Just fucking write it. And then the next time around, when I have something else jotted down, don't let so much time lapse before circling back to it and free writing to it. That's what I get personally from this free writing piece, now that I look at it objectively. And I'd be interested to see what you folks got from it. So feel free to hit me up at spuntoday@gmail.com or in the comment section of this specific post on spuntoday.com/free writing /Creed 2. And that's the episode, folks. Stay tuned to listen to some tunes. I believe I'm dropping in a song that my homegirl Elo put me onto by Ben